Hi guys, welcome to today's daily drama check-in. Today we're going to be talking about dialogue versus narration. What's the difference? So if you go to the slide, I've got the terms listed for you. Narration are the descriptions in the story, as told by the narrator. Dialogue are the spoken parts in the story. So basically anything a character actually says, that is dialogue. Now, you might have heard the term monologue, and I threw that in there for you too. A monologue is when one character is on stage speaking by themselves. Okay? So, our learning target today is I can recognize dialogue and narration in a fable story. So, an example of dialogue is, I may be slow, but I always get there in the end. So that's something that the tortoise actually says in our story that we're going to read today. The narration, so part of a narration would be a description like this. Hare was always laughing at Tortoise for being so slow. So the dialogue is what the character says, and the narration are the descriptions of the characters, the surroundings, anything else. Now, usually in plays, descriptions aren't really part of the play. A play is pretty much made up of dialogue, and you might have some stage directions in there, which kind of can give suggestions to the actors of what to do. But a play is usually made up of dialogue and action. So unless there's a character that's a narrator, then you don't often have a lot of narration in plays themselves. So let's dive into this, and we're going to look at dialogue versus narration in the story, The Hare and the Tortoise. So here's our first picture, so you can see it. These guys, the illustrator put these guys on motorcycles today. Hare was always laughing at Tortoise for being so slow. So there we go. We have an example of narration. As I read through this story, I want you as an exercise to give me a flat palm. So just show me your palm if it's narration, and show me a thumbs up if it's dialogue. So narration and dialogue. Okay. So Hare was always laughing at Tortoise for being so slow. Ha ha ha, I really can't think why you bother moving at all, he said. Well, said Tortoise, I may be slow, but I always get there in the end. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a race. You must be joking, you silly slowcoach, sneered Hare. But if you insist. So, one hot sunny day, all the animals came to watch the great race. Mole lifted the starting flag and said, Ready, set, go! Hare raced away, leaving Tortoise coughing in a cloud of dust. Then Tortoise moved off, slowly, very slowly. Hare was already out of sight. It's hopeless, said the grasshoppers. What chance does poor Tortoise have? Ha ha ha, that silly Tortoise, thought Hare, looking back. He's so slow I can't lose. Why should I rush? In fact, I think I'll just have a little rest. So he lay back in the warm sun and was soon fast asleep, dreaming of cheers and prizes. So there's our story of the race, our picture. And then this is the next picture. So that is the rabbit, the hare, taking a nap on his motorcycle. All the long morning, Tortoise moved slowly along the route. Most of the animals got so bored they went home, but Tortoise just kept on going. At noon, he passed Hare dozing gently by the side of the road. He didn't stop to wake him. He just kept on going. Eventually, Hare woke up and stretched his legs. The sun was low in the sky, and looking back down the road, he laughed. No sign of that silly tortoise. With a great leap, he raced off in the direction of the finish line to collect his prize. But then, to his horror, who should he see in the distance but that silly tortoise creeping along over the finish line, slowly, slowly. The flag was down. The tortoise had won. Even from the top of the hill, Hare could hear the cheering and the clapping. It's not fair, whined Hare. You cheated. Everyone knows I'm much faster than you, you old slow coach. Ah, said Tortoise, looking back over his shoulder. But I told you, I always get there in the end. Slow and steady. That's me. So, once again, with this story, I want to talk about dialogue because there's a lot of dialogue in this. So, the hare had his dialogue, the things that he said. So, some examples of that would be, I really can't think why you bother moving at all. You must be joking, you silly slow coach. Other things, he's so slow I can't lose. Why should I rush? In fact, I think I'll just have a little rest. So all those things that Hare says, those are dialogue. And Tortoise has a lot of lines too. I may be slow, but I always get there in the end. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a race. Then other parts, so the narration would be parts like this. So all the long morning, Tortoise moved slowly, slowly along the route. Most of the animals got so bored they went home, but Tortoise just kept on going. So things like that, that's narration. So it's very important to be able to recognize those things, and we'll talk about that in a later class on a later slide, because when you start putting stories, changing stories into plays, then the dialogue is so important, and being able to change narration or descriptive parts of the story into either action or dialogue is critical when you're playmaking. So anyway, that is our daily drama check-in. Thanks for checking in.